Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, looks good.
All right, good deal. We're glad that we're up and rolling here. Okay, we've gone through with the class just real briefly what the logistics of how we're going to do this is, and very similar to what we talked about before. So, like we talked about, I'm just going to go ahead and introduce you a little bit real quick, and then we'll let you go ahead and get started. Okay?
Perfect.
All right, sounds good. Well, like we said, this is Brian Eady. He's a 1996 graduate of Wartburg. I was a psych and sociology major, and has had an interesting career path up until this point. And so he's going to tell you about that a little bit. I actually was talking with one of his psych professors the other day, and he said that it didn't surprise him at all that Brian was embarking on a project like this, because he said he was always coming up with creative ways to solve problems when he was a student here too. So anyway, that was interesting for me to hear. But anyway, with that, let's just go ahead and turn it over to you, Brian, and we'll go from there.
So did he tell you that I had perfect attendance all 4 years?
I didn't ask him about that, but
No, I didn't. Yeah. So hello from Los Angeles to you all. We were setting this thing up about an hour ago, and I realized that you guys have a lot nicer classrooms than I did when I was sitting in there. So you're very fortunate. But so I'm just going to start by kind of giving you a little bit of what my journey was. I moved around a lot as a kid, but I went to high school for most of my high school in Dubuque. And is there anybody else from Dubuque in the class? Awesome. None. Came to Wartburg. Loved it. Like I said, Professor said, I was a psych and sociology major. Did the work study thing. Did food service kind of stuff. And then graduated from Wartburg. During my college years, I went back to Dubuque and worked at the movie theater. Had done that for about 6 years, and I think that's kind of where my love for film kind of grew in. And so I went, after I graduated, I actually worked at Wartburg for a year at the Union. It was kind of the end of the old Union, and as they were preparing for the new one. And it was at that point that I realized that I really wanted to find some way into entertainment. So during that year after I graduated, I commuted to Des Moines at night. I worked during the day at Wartburg. I would then commute to Des Moines at night, volunteer for any kind of commercial set or video set or anything that I could do to just be around it, and then come back to work the next morning. And then after a year of that, I decided I was going to go ahead and make the move out there. And at the time, I wanted to be in acting. So moved out there, got the waiter job, again, volunteered for anything that I could be on, met a couple other folks that wanted to be actors too, and we realized that if we were to actually do it, we'd have to leave Iowa at some point, because there wasn't a whole lot going on in Iowa for acting. But we also knew that if we went to LA, that we'd just get eaten alive. So we went to Dallas first, had a contact there, started to do some independent films, some commercials, all that kind of stuff. Some theater, and then after about 10 months of being there, I had a casting director from Los Angeles came to Dallas, put some stuff on video. At a seminar, went back to LA, called me back, said, "Hey, we showed it to a talent agent in LA, and they said they'd sign you if you move out." So made the move, came out to LA about 6 weeks later, and worked at a casting office, did the whole acting, auditioning thing, and things were really going great for me. But I also had friends from Iowa that moved out with me as well, and it was not going nearly as well for them, and they were kind of getting taken advantage of by the system. So at that point, I pulled out of acting and started this nonprofit called the Biz House, and the whole point of it was to kind of safely integrate young people into LA. And so we did free seminars on the reality of acting or directing or writing or producing, or had all sorts of industry people came out and did that. We housed people out of our apartment and then our house for free, and just kind of got them set up into it. And about 6 years into that, we realized that for it to really get to where we wanted it to be, which was this kind of 35-bed, cool, hostel, safe house thing, that we'd have to build our relationship in the industry again, because they're the ones that have to fund it. So I kind of shut down the Biz House and started this production company about 6 years ago that's called Meriwether Productions, and started shooting documentaries because I could grab a couple of folks, a backpack full of gear, and shoot anywhere in the world. So we shot projects in Jerusalem and Honduras and Germany, and then started shooting things in the States, and then finally just wanted to get into narrative fictional stuff. So started shooting some short films, shot outside of Boston, and then ultimately shot my first feature in Wisconsin called Clear Lake WI. This kind of psychological thriller with Michael Madsen and a couple other folks, and hopped that around from theaters in a couple different states, and then now we are getting ready for a couple of new projects, and that kind of brings us to this ReDistribute thing, which over the last probably 3 or 4 years in Hollywood, the whole kind of the whole business has changed. The people aren't buying DVDs nearly as much. People aren't going to theaters nearly as much, although there are a handful of movies that are making more profits than usual, so it seems like the overall profits are good for Hollywood. And the expectation was that this movie on demand, this kind of downloading of movies, would take the DVD's place, and it hasn't done that yet. So we're in this kind of black hole of the industry of filmmakers aren't able to make films because they're not able to get them seen, and it's this kind of cycle. And so after a handful of meetings with different distribution people and folks that I know in the industry, I took a step back and said, okay, what can we do to create something that kind of takes all the bad things from the recession and kind of flip it on its head, and still be able to make movies that we think are really interesting, that people would want to watch, but we don't have to be James Cameron or Ridley Scott to do it. And so this kind of ReDistribute idea came out of that. And we can talk about that whole kind of process a little bit more. But they wanted me to talk a little bit about my time at Wartburg, and I have to say I actually loved Wartburg, and I think it's a weird thing that you move away and you kind of get caught up in stuff. And I remember talking with some friends of ours. I was there a couple of years ago for a reunion, and it literally seems like we were just there a couple of years ago, and now we're those old people that talk about how it seemed like it was just a couple of years ago that we were there. And I'm kind of disappointed in myself for being one of those guys now. But I actually really did like the time at Wartburg, and what it was two things for me. One was it really kind of created this solid foundation of trust and community, even though I didn't necessarily take my degree and find a job that was exactly within that kind of realm of the degree. I did come out of that with the sense of like, okay, we know how community works, we know what that trust and that kind of hard work, and knowing that, we could then take that into the business world and kind of come up with ideas and fall back on that. The challenge with it was growing up in Iowa, and some of you guys might be in a similar situation, is that, and Dubuque was probably even a little bit worse, but there was always that challenge that if you didn't have plans to go into the kind of standard 6 careers, that some of these degrees led you to, that if you didn't feel like that was your calling, then it was a very challenging place to grow up, because I had no idea what other things were out there besides the usual kind of the big 6, the doctor, the lawyer, the teacher, the pastor, all those kind of things. So it took me a long time of hopping around in Texas and Los Angeles to kind of figure out what opportunities are out there and what that means for me and what I could use to do that. And so when I was ready to finally take this on, and this is brutal business to be in, and it doesn't matter if you're here in Des Moines or wherever, it's a brutal business, but it made it possible for me to kind of stick with it and grow in it because of the foundation I had back in Iowa. So I'm always thankful for that. I'm a huge Hawkeye fan and Iowa fan all the way around. So it's a good thing. And there's a couple other folks out here from Iowa, so it's